Good morning and welcome back to the OPIM Alpha Uncovered. This is Alvin Fan. I'm the CEO of OP Investment Management. We're here today for an update call with Alteca Core Fund, which is run by good friend Ryan Lee over at Forest Capital. Ryan is the director of the Alteca Core Fund, and we're here to talk about the fund's really stellar performance in 2022 after a tough first year coming out. Ryan, I'm going to get right into it. We had a chat back in September. We talked a little bit about your regional views. I just want to take a high-level view first. Your fund has done quite well. You're off to a decent start. It's a big turnaround from 2022. Why don't you walk me through the full year, how you adjusted the book, how you made some adjustments. We talked a little bit last time about increasing the flexibility of your strategy to do shorts, as well as expanding into both the US and increasing your view on Korea as well. I want to go through all of those topics, but why don't you give us a high-level view first, and then we'll throw rocks.
2022, we had a big loss from our China bet, but we kept the positions the later part of 22. And then after it recovered quite a bit, beginning of 2023, we kind of made a switch to have more exposure into US names, because after NASDAQ went down 40% in 22, US big tech names looked very attractive in valuation. And also we knew them very well from my previous position at a family office. So we took a large positions in few very big names. And then that really worked out quite well. And also the Korea positions, we expanded in our semiconductors, because based on our channel checks, the recovery of our IT investment was underway. The valuation also was very attractive for Korean semiconductors as well. So we finished pretty well last year, because after the inflation also played a role, it kind of stabilized, and we had on a macro view that the inflation is on the downtrend and the supply chain problem has recovered. So we took on more long positions than normal time. And so we had a pretty good return last year. And beginning of this year, we're up quite a bit. And that was helped by our bet on the generative AI. Generative AI kind of hit the market beginning of last year. We follow them very closely, how the technology have an impact to the companies in our universe. Like NVIDIA, for example, we kind of got in later than I wish I would. Probably third quarter of last year, after the NVIDIA market surprise, the stock price actually didn't react as much. The valuation was very cheap. It was like a mid-teens, although the company was growing at 60%. And we knew that this trend will continue multi-years, given the impact of technology in the industry. So, although it was late, we thought it was very attractive. So we went in and we made a decent profit from that as well.
Yeah, 1 second. So let me just zoom in on this point, because in your last newsletter, actually, you spent most of the narrative talking about AI. So we might as well get into the thick of it. In September, when we had a meeting, at the time, you're already slowly taking profits out of the AI story at the time. What made you decide to switch to increase or re-underwrite your position into AI? You meet with a lot of CEOs in the market. You meet with a lot of suppliers as well. What was it that made you re-underwrite the thesis?
Yeah, we were actually reducing slightly on our bets on big tech back then. We didn't have any positions in semiconductor until third quarter. But after our meetings with our senior executives in Korea, we learned that the semiconductor was a critical part of generative AI technology for the next few years. And semiconductor names in Asia like TSMC, Hynix, and even NVIDIA, they looked very undervalued compared to what we heard from. We never hesitate when we see an opportunity, no matter how late we are in the game. I mean, although semi names were up maybe 50% from the beginning of the year, but these names were quite cheap compared to what was coming on the horizon. So we decided to add more, jump into the semi positions. And then it worked quite well for the second half of last year, and also this first quarter of this year as well.
On that point, a lot of your resources and your connectivity in the C-suite realm of large companies has mostly been in Korea. Do you see, is there a path for you to invest in both AI and in Korean companies, or is it primarily in the US? And I'm asking this because you did mention that NVIDIA is a great example of coming in, albeit late to the game,
Yeah.
but a lot of people are now talking about different parts of the value chain as it starts to permeate through the supply and semiconductor world, which is not just Taiwan, it's not just Netherlands. Are you investing into the AI story in Korea, or is it still primarily out of the US?
Yeah, definitely. We're investing in Korea as well as we're starting to investing in Japan into the AI realm, if you call it. Yeah, but now given like a recent rally in the AI segment, we see the valuation is not very attractive at the moment. Maybe fair and slightly more upside given like a strong demand for the sector. So we are now trying to play a long short game in the AI segment. We identify the winners and the losers and like fairly valued compared to very expensive. We see different markets have a different like views, but the fundamental wise, we see like some arbitrage pairing opportunities going forward. So we're now, because the AI segment has rallied too much, and I see some like overheating in the market, some signals. And so we are finding more shorts so that we can pair these opportunities.
Great, that's really interesting. So since the last time we spoke, yen's kind of strengthening a little bit, kind of small rebound. How are you feeling about currency risk, number one? And number two, we're starting to see some strong GDP numbers coming out of Japan as well. Any update on your view of how you want to tackle the market? Obviously AI, but are there other thematic ways that you want to tackle this market?
Yeah, I think, maybe I could be wrong, but I talked to the senior people who's been in the politics in Korea, and they're kind of saying the US is kind of moving away from China. They're trying to favor Japan. And that shows in terms of exchange rate. 145, 150. In the past, the US would never kind of allow that exchange rate last for a long time. And because of that, Japan companies are having really good time. For example, Toyota, it's been always 200 billion market cap for a long time, but now it's like 300 billion. It's gone up by 50%. That large company, that was, I thought wasn't possible, but that happens. So I think as long as there is a conflict between China and the US, Korea and Japan will be favored by the government, and politicians. So I think exchange rate may be high for both countries. But given the interest rate in the US is coming down, I think the exchange rate will have to come down slowly as well. And in Japan, based on like valuation perspective, I can't really find like two attractive names at the moment. Although, the geopolitical perspective, they're in a kind of good positions, but we want to see, given what they have shown to us for the past 2 decades. So we want to be focused more on the fundamentals of the companies and valuations rather than like our macro view, which has not been like great in the past.
How's the team looking to build your research capability for Japan? It's mostly been centered around Korea, and US is relatively straightforward. We hear a lot of firms, throwing boots on the ground in Japan. Are you working with partners, sell-side analysts? Like, how are you building your vassals or your capacity for Japan research if this is going to be a longer-term market for you?
At the moment, because of our smaller size, we wanted to focus more on Korea and in the US. But we are covering the Japanese semiconductor names and the equipment names because we can do the channel checks within Korea, how good they are and how sustainable their growth are. So our research will center in Korea to learn about Japanese companies from industry perspective for a couple of years.
I do want to go back to the countries. To the point about just sort of expanding the reach, you have Japan, US, we've covered China a bit. It sounds like you're reducing your exposure. You were actually quite bullish in our last call with some of the big names in China, such as Alibaba. Of course, they've suffered a bit in the last 6 months. Is it safe to say that your view has turned, slightly more bearish compared to it was 6 months ago, and that's why you reduced China to close to zero? And the second question is, what would it take for you to return to that market, if at all?
Yeah, we took the positions down much smaller than it was because we took the view that we want to focus more on the company that has the potential to grow continuously. In China, have formed more of the view that China will have a more serious challenges going forward because of given low birth rates and the housing bubbles, and especially the conflict with the U.S. escalating actually turned off on the future long-term growth of China. In the past, we tried to more focused on bargain valuations and cheap valuations, and waiting for them to return after economic cycle turns positive. But when we saw hyper growth of AI technologies and especially the de-risking in the factor, it raised the concern about inflation and productivity problem in future. And also we concluded that this AI technology will play a critical role for US, living with less help of cheap manufactured products from China. So I guess we changed our philosophy a little bit toward the more growth than value compared to last year, in year 2022. But it was not a huge swing, I would say. We learned more that the world has changed a lot since then, and we felt that we should focus more on the opportunities coming ahead rather than stay in the past.
Okay. Ryan, anything else you want to update us on while we have you online?
Because of our good performance, there's some interest in Korean security companies. So, we're private banks. They have distribution networks and they try to launch some products with us. So we're expecting to grow our AUM in Korea, I don't know, hopefully 50 million-ish this year, and continue to grow if it goes well. And we can launch more products with more partners in Korea. At the moment, portfolio split is about 30% Korea, the rest is the global. Korean clients' perspective, no real experienced managers, global equities in Korea. So we are kind of unique situations to serve the opportunities. So I think we're expecting to grow the segment. We want also grow our international client base after maybe a year later when our AUM grows bigger, and then we can retain more the brokers who can introduce us to their distributions network. So yeah, that's kind of development, I would say.
Okay, yeah, definitely. We'll see how we can help out. Thank you so much, Ryan, for hanging with us and spending time with us today. It's always good talking to you, and congratulations again on a fantastic 2023 and a very, very strong start to the year. And we'll catch up with you in a few months. Good luck.